I want to thank you for Summer Academy to have this opportunity to teach, right?
Absolutely, thank you.
And then thank you for Galerie 5020 to have us talk. So we have 45 minutes or?
Yes, approximately.
All right.
Okay, good.
Okay, so since this our course is more focused on collaboration between sound and visuals, today's talk I want to somehow focus on that aspect a little bit. First of all, I want to show. Okay, it's better. So first, I want to show some videos from not my work, but some historical reference can be interesting to share with you guys. And I will show you 3 minutes. This is a performance collective from Japan called the Gutai group. They founded 1954, and then they did a lot of performative paintings. And they also did theater, and this is a video from 1956, their second outdoor exhibition. And I'm gonna show you this first. Maybe 3 minutes. There's no sound. Oh. This I show already to my class, but oh. So Zina, this is a video you should not film. Zina.
No, it was a film, no?
No, it's not allowed to be filmed.
Okay.
So I often go back to this exhibition they did in the 50s. It's happened inside of this pine tree public park. They exhibited sort of different sort of sculptures / paintings in a very early period of Japanese post-war modern art history. And this happened near Osaka, Japan. It's actually in Kobe, Asia Kobe, Asia Hyogo Prefecture. And this is August, very hot summer day, and they open until 10 p.m. So sometimes the place become very dark, and a lot of public experience the piece without knowing, what they are. And Gutai group, for the people who doesn't know, it's a collective of young painters led by older painter called Jiro Yoshihara. And this is actually second outdoor exhibition, and the first one was a year before 1955. And then Japan doesn't have a traditional kind of art world, so they sort of don't have it's not like it has a painting in a gallery or painting in a museum. It's not like a Western kind of history of sometimes when I come to Europe, everybody has more already kind of established relationship to paintings because of a long history of salon and everything. So this is one thing that somehow Japan didn't have much established art context, and somehow art, the individual art, it was more craftsmanship was more part of everyday art, so they didn't have this individuality up until like, early 20th century. And then we started to communicate with, Russia and Germany, and we imported constructivism and Dadaism. That's already happened like 20s and 30s in Japan. But this is the 50s. Do you have any question about this video? Hildegard, did you know this?
No, I didn't know this exactly, do you know?
Yeah, this is Atsuko Tanaka's electric kind of structure. And I like their kind of group dynamics. They're not like sometimes people see them as a kind of utopian collective, but it's not necessarily tight group. They have certain conflict in between, jealousies and also like a money problems. So they have a lot of drama inside of this group. But one of the big things is that this French critic visited them in 1959, and French critic Michel Tapier visited them, and they started to introduce the idea of art market to those Japanese painters, and of course it's very attractive idea, and they imported a lot of paintings to France and USA and the other part of Europe. And up until then, the people making a painting, based on the paper, but after these French critics came, they started to make more like a tableau paintings. And one of the work I did, the performance was 2011. I made sort of a dance performance with actual painting by Gutai's collection in Toulouse, France. Mm-hmm. Yes, and there's a bunch of exported Gutai paintings in this museum. So I thought I wanted to somehow make a sort of dance piece based on this explosion of paintings. And then they started from performative painting, but they started to make a tableau painting. And I wanted to make tableau back again to performance. So this is the performance I made with real paintings. And most paintings come from 1959, and I didn't want it to. I somehow treated them sort of connection with other part of the world, and on the back of the Gutai paintings, there's Pablo Picasso's tableau for the theater from the 30s. And also the music is composed by young Japanese modern composers from 1930. Also, one of them a Taiwanese composer who are active in Japan, which the piano was played by a Russian composer, Alexander Cherepunin. I juxtapose this so that to make a connection between Gutai and 30s and this European connection. Also, this music is related to specific school of music history. So this Russian composer who came to Japan in the 20s, end of 20s, they kind of this Russian composer criticized the way Japanese composer absorbing Western modern music, like without any criticism. So this Russian composer advocated to make a composition based on the more incorporated folk music from Japan. So that generation of composer nurtured by this Russian composer, and he influenced also Chinese early modern music history also. This is the composer by Bunya Ko, that Taiwanese composer. Oh, sorry, this was Bunya Ko, this music. And that was Yasuji Kiyose, a teacher of Toru Takemitsu. So I started to somehow interpret historical Japanese performance art, and this is part of my practice that I sort of use historical performance art and transform into some kind of different scenario for myself, and that sometimes not only a Japanese art, but also history of New York performance art histories, also German certain genealogy of contemporary art from Germany. Also, I was influenced because of how I was educated in New York. I want to show one little clip before we go into my recent work, which is a musical piece that I made with a different composer. Let me see. Okay, sorry. This was happened in Dallas, Texas, and I was. This was kind of site-specific musical happened inside of a big museum. In between, the museum has a East Asian gallery section and a European painting section, and we made this musical in between those two sections. And the musical is about the history of this Gutai group's dynamics, how they somehow changed right after the French critic visited Japan, and their practice kind of transforming, And I made a lip sync musical. And the composer is David Zuckerman. And I will show one of the piece. And this has a LED painting based on Jiro Yoshihara's painting. And I thought this will continue to the next project. It's all lip syncing by the performance voice, and then every audience will see a monitor that the lyrics is going to play there.
Mr. Kazoo, you've won so many prizes this year. Tell us about your method of making art. Where did you get the idea to paint with your feet? What are your plans for revolutionizing art next? How does it feel to be a hip artist? How does it feel to be a Gutai star?
I'm just painting, it all starts with action. If the work turns out good, I'm happy with that. Look at the old man. Can't paint anymore. I'm just a teacher.
He's got a nice house, but no success like his students. Shoves his own paintings into the corner.
Tell me how to paint. Tell me how to paint.
He's here.
Oh, I don't have enough cash. Salu, can I borrow some?
I don't have enough. My wife didn't give me any this week.
What? We are screwed.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Oh, Otsuru, can I borrow some cash?
What? Hell no! I had to save it to get some pay tomorrow. Did you return the money to Kazu from last month? You're always borrowing from everyone.
I like borrowing from Gutai. That's one of the best reasons to be a part of this group.
I wish our work so like yours does. We collect the fee for Gutai. It is a monthly fee.
Who does the accounting for it?
The daughter of Conceptual of the son of Kim
He's the heir of the Salad Oil Company.
I can make friends in this group. I can borrow money from my friends.
You have to sell a painting at high price. Otherwise, it is meaningless. If you want to give your paintings away, you should quit being a painter now.
This was actually like based on interviews of artists. So I kind of started to do a lot of performance inside of a galleries, and I noticed, the audience kind of started to get used to what to expect from the performance happening in a gallery or museum. So around this time, I kind of started to do a little bit kind of appropriating a more theater situation. And this was like performance, like 1 hour performance, audiences, some sitting, and we have like more clear kind of theater relationship. But then recently I started to more try to figure out another way, which is like I want to still collaborate with composers, also like poet, who does lyrics, and somehow I wanted to make my own sort of institution that I could collaborate within this like a kind of free, no, not free, more like specific structure for my sort of collaboration. So I want to talk about the two work which we recently worked with Christian Naujoks. We sort of started to work through the, I was searching for some composer who could, very interested to somehow, outside of music distribution, and maybe before we talk about two work that we did together, maybe Christian can talk about a little bit of where you come from and anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. I thought just instead of like talking about all my work that I did in the recently 10 years I've been working as a composer, musician, DJ also in various contexts. I just talk about this most recent album, or the album that I released. Actually, I had released at the point when I met A, and so when the work kind of like connected. I graduated Visual Arts Academy Leipzig, so there was always I was always interested in this intersection between art and music, and especially like spatialization of music in galleries or in exhibition settings, how to respond to different contexts. After graduating, I moved to Hamburg to closely connect with the underground music scene there around the Golden Pudel Club, and also with Dial Records label, also a label which is run by contemporary artists and musicians and DJs. So there was like an interdisciplinary discourse always going on. And I released 3 solo albums on Dial Records. First was 2009. When I started composing, I was more working with also referencing a lot, kind of like minimalist, post-minimalist compositions involving acoustic instruments like marimbas, percussions, or also string works or electronic works, but also kind of like merging always different contexts like pop music and electronic dance music and modern chamber music. So at the point when we met, I had just released this album called Wave, which was more like a step to more like very personal point, not so much referencing concert music. It was like actually I focused on the electric guitar, which is like the first instrument I learned before engaging with modern 20th century music, and just play some track, it's instrumental from this album. I thought it was interesting when you showed the musical, with the paintings on the wheels and with the piano music.
Yeah.
There was a bit like,
Yes.
Yeah. Some of the piano music reminded me a little bit like Eric Satie.
Ah, yes. Of
Yeah.
course.
Which probably most of you know, he's a very famous French composer, but among other things what he achieved as a composer was this term of like musique d'ameublement, which is also about the spatialization of music and which was also in parts presented at gallery openings at his time. That's like more like a compositional tradition that I connect with. This kind of like paradigm shifting of listening and also how music can function, kind of like an in-between space. Also this notion of like, shifting between presence and absence in music. And so transferred this kind of aesthetics to more like an instrument which we know more from rock music or from indie pop music. Oh yeah, by the way, the cover is also by artist friend of mine, Heike Karin Völl. She is a Berlin-based artist, also teacher at UDK. And she also shows with Matthew Galerie, which is also kind of like people, social field involved, also with this music label that I released my music on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about the project from last year, actually at the Münster Sculpture project. And what's this? Oh,
It's feedback. Maybe, yeah.
what is that?
I have to turn off sometimes one of the microphones.
Oh,
Otherwise,
okay.
you know.
All right. Okay. So we cannot do the conversational.
No, you can, but I have to.
Okay.
Hello.
So this is a place me and Hildegard actually met, and so I was very lucky to invited to this project because there are 10 years exhibition. So I was already approached 3 years before this is happening. So that was very rare for me to prepare such a long time. And I choose this location for my work because first it's a sort of outpost of Munich Center, not Munich, Münster Center. So you have to actually visit this location by, most people rode there by bike, and there's an interesting narrative from center to this very iconic lake in the Münster, where a lot of historical sculpture was installed there, and then almost the end of the trip, the city becomes sort of very like in between nature situation. There's some empty land that was actually part of this school land that I found it's very kind of perfect location for this temporal stage that I wanted to sort of try, And I selected specific sort of kind of subjective selection of painters that I had already previous history to working with or made a reference, or some historical dead artists that I thought it's interesting to have a group. And I'm not necessarily trying to make a group that could function as like a sort of united collective, but somehow each element of group can make certain like negotiation or some kind of conversation, so that it has kind of dynamics in between this group. First, on the front side is Kobe paintings called The Meeting from 1854. On the right side, Jutta Kruter, German painter. She was actually, I collaborated with her often. And on the back there, Nicholas Krambarov, young painter from Germany but based in USA. You don't see Amy Silman, another New York-based painter. And then in the center, Atsuko Tanaka, who part of a founding member of Gutai, but then left that group in the 60s. And on the back that you don't see is John Mitchells, who also kind of exiled herself from New York, abstract kind of context to France. And then like Rena Spollings is another sort of collective group that makes paintings also. I want to sort of introduce three songs. Originally, there was some idea that we make some kind of songs that 7 of paintings will sing sometime together, but ended up like we made individual tracks for each song, each paintings, and each paintings. Oh, I forgot to say, this is based on the paintings of actual size of the painting. So Kobe's painting is the exact kind of almost same size as the real paintings. So you can imagine like physical sort of size of image. Also, the image is very coarse LED paintings, which I built myself, and then I hand dyed the fabric, which hangs the painting.
Actually, so it's a sequence of 7 songs, actually. Yeah.
Actually, I know this project 3 months, but the song making is very quick.
Yeah.
Right? It was like we started 2 months before the opening, and we made 7 songs.
Yeah.
So it has like a different sort of a production rhythm. Like I developed certain like contextual material, then with composer, him, and also one more person who does co-write lyrics together.
Dan Poston.
Yes, we worked together in a short amount of time over Skype and made 7 songs. So I play 3 of them. Mm-hmm. The first,
actually, also to mention, each song has like an intro section of like more environmental music, because the sequence of the songs was like, you could not actually tell which painting is gonna sing next. So we always had some intro sections so that audience viewers could like hear, okay, now it's actually Tanaka singing, and then people could walk to the painting and then actually listen to the painting singing. And the Jutta song, the Harsh Pastoral, is actually, you're starting with Kobe, okay, good, yeah.
Yeah, so the title of the piece called The Harsh Citation, Cited Painting, harsh pastoral. Pastoral is a specific genre of paintings, but I like some harshness, like encountering LED on the daily life and harsh stuff. So let's pray a few minutes.
Welcome to our front. Don't be afraid of me. I'm a digital painting, stir like Kajis. Now encountering you and this tech body, champion post-truth, earth is anxiety. Bonjour, monsieur, it's checking out the dryness of art. My media, this lyric moment transform. Greeting online industry, far from all the great lightning. Follow me, natural reality, solution post studio post internet, right? Wondering, would Buddha, but system at how one. Are you us?
So it's, to me, it's kind of like a natural, not natural. It's like an outdoor theater, but without the performance body. But instead of performer, there's like a theater. I don't know, LED bodies. The electricity is like replacing. This currency running. Always moving around currency is the sort of performer for me to perform. Okay, so this is another song based on
Jutta Köter.
Harsh citation, harsh minster, harsh pastoral. Alright, I am an architect. I am gay. That doesn't matter, okay? Harsh pastoral was coined by the painter Jutta Köter. I love her. She made this work for her own painting in 2009. I wanted to borrow this work in order to elaborate my relationship to this location and this exhibition. When I encountered this location in Minster, it was totally harsh pastoral stage. The end of city, where the city and nature say goodbye to each other, bike riding, and all those happy people. If you know Minster, you know Azi, this huge man-made lake. Public is enjoying at Azi up until here, then there's like open nothingness. Horses. Also there's a carpenter school. I love carpenters. Anyway, I wanted my LED perform and channel certain characters, states, and attitudes. Jutta Köter attitude. What is harsh? Few weeks after the opening, this was story. What the fuck? I love it. And it became a weird mediator between public and the architect. Sort of reminder, what is public? Painting we modeled after is
Formula 1, PGF number 3, 2016. I love it. Title of song is Hush Patra. Hush Patra.
Do you want to say something about this?
Sure. Actually, it's important to add that originally A, Dan, and I were planning to vocally enact each of the paintings with our transformed voices. And with the Utah painting, we felt like somehow we need someone else's voice, and then it was a nice coincidence that we found out that actually one of the persons working for sculpture projects, Projektmanagement, Betreuung, had a great voice, and we asked her to sing that song for us. So
we just didn't want to just have a man's voice, although we tried to have different board coding and kind of change the
acting of the singing also, yeah.
I play one more song and then we can move on to
okay, good.
Hush citation, hush mister, hush pastra. I see this is a performance that lasts 4 months. Performance with a body of performance, LED body. Painting is a performance. This song is a little bit disco, queer disco, or a Jewish cycle dance. Our voice is feminine. It's like LED flashing in the sun. All LED are the same size as actual painting, a body size. You and me. I generated lyrics from some text Amy wrote after she saw her own painting performed in New York 2007. Now that becomes a song again for the field. Abstract sex. Outdoor sex. What kind of sex is that? Oh, how I wonder. Abstract. Title of song is Abstract.
I perform with artistry and brilliant dreams.
So this was kind of mixed with nature's, outdoor sound, and it was kind of interesting, how they mix up with.
Yeah, actually, the original volume of the songs is close to human's voice of speaking. So you would always be able to hear the the sounds of the environment.
Yeah. So I wanted to have like a more like a one-on-one like relationship with the visitor and LED paintings.
The artist is the homo can be digital things. We lighten up in public, putting in the party. My body's body's like a probably in Paris open sea.
Okay. I think we can answer question, but we'll quickly
let's-
show our recent collaboration. How much time we have? 5 minutes?
Yes, 5 minutes? Let's say yes.
Okay. All right. So my recent exhibition is actually in a museum called the Kunstverein in Düsseldorf, and sort of I wanted to kind of make a project in relation to a Münster, but this time I was making a project in relation to a performance history, not paintings, and I started to work with astrologer, the artist friend who can really study the astrology, and for the people who doesn't know like how the astrology works, is that you need a place and the day that you are born, and also the time you are born for the astrology, so that you can generate this graphic called the natal chart, which is sort of telling you the planet position of planet when you are born. So again I selected the group of performance art piece, not the artist itself. So for instance, 7360 Sukiyaki, this is a piece done by Tony Conrad, American artist, in 1973, December 17, 6 p.m. I researched different performance art history, when and where the performance was born, and then apply astrology for each works. So in a way that we get the kind of personality based on the astrology. Let's say I did a Yoko Ono's cut piece. What kind of character or what kind of psychology, what kind of like future and past this performance art has, based on this esoteric technique. So let me see. This is the cut piece. So for instance, this is one of the astrology kind of personality of cut piece. You radiate strength from a distance, vulnerability up close. From the quiet outcast to the happy oddity, you engage with every individual as an equal with something unique to share with the world. But even in your one-on-one interaction, you float at the distance, blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna. Actually, this each of artwork has a different personality readings, and also that mixed with a historical sort of a document, like telling like what the performance was about, that Ono kneeled on the stage and placed a large pair of scissors in front of her. She asked audience members to come up one by one. So this is another kind of fictional grouping of different performance, and to see how each sort of these temporal groupings will function.
So just to point out clearly, the performance people referenced in the title is actually the fictional personalities created by astrological reading, not the performance artist, right? Yeah.
Yes. And so one of the work is this LED natal chart that tells that the planetary position, and another one is the personality report of the artwork itself. And then the third part is this fictional radio show that I interview with performance people. So I talked with Cut Piece as a person in the interview, and ask about how they're doing, and we did this interview, which is available in the exhibition. And for this radio interview, I asked Christian to actually make another interpretation of
like a psychological
planet aspect.
Yeah.
So for instance, for Cut Piece by Yoko Ono, one of the very important aspect is planet Saturn in Pisces in the first house, oppositing Uranus, the planet Uranus, and Pluto in Virgo in the seventh house.
Yeah. So it sounds funny, but the idea was to actually take it really seriously and to consider this planetary aspects, the natal charts diagram that A was showing earlier, kind of as like a source data to turn into music, to give like the personified performance personified performance artworks a manifestation in sound. So it's like a compressed psychological sound signature for each.
So I want to play for the last of the lecture, like an exception of this fictional interview, including this interpretation of sound aspect, the planet aspect by Christian. So here it is.
Oh, maybe you go a bit.
Yes.
I think you don't look as strong as you look in public. Someone gets to know you, I think people quickly understand you are actually very sensitive and fragile person, don't you think?
I'm talking with performance art.
I do feel that way. My sensitivity, my fragility, I don't know why you're asking this.
So we're kind of interrogating, who are performance people. So we are asking what normally, we don't ask this kind of question when I first met people, but I think you are not like just people, but performance people. I thought it would be nice to,
just get a little deeper.
Get to point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that note,
this is Sarah
what
Chow,
do you like about your wounded
the artist collaborator.
vulnerability?
Well, I like the open things and all sorts of different people, all sorts of different types. It can connect me to everything. It depends what piece you want to look at and what piece I want to look at. And I think that when people are violent,
Sorry, I'm crying.
So cut beads, a banner for banishing of human beings, untitled boycott movement, seedbed, 7360 sukiyaki, baby eating, 11 spectacle.
She is a part of your wounded feeling.
Yes, I mean, I think this is quite public. My mother was, she still is, she's really, you know, a lot of times when people live for a long time, they're, what we are talking about, this theme of vulnerability, they then become strong. I mean, I think this might be true, by living it. And my mother's tendency to always lead, you know, my father would be very angry with her. At first, I would maybe identify with my father there, but as I myself got older, I see my mother's always leading. She goes on cruises and she leaves.
So Saturn in Pisces in the first house, oppositing Uranus, Pluto in Virgo in the seventh house.
Yoko Ono is not my mother. No, that's not true. Yeah, she is not. No, my mother is my mother.
Do you consider her possibly a surrogate mother in some way?
And she's kind of part of you as a performance people.
She's someone I embraced for a while.
I think we left out Pluto in this sound aspect because it was too tricky. So it's
like,
basically Saturn and Uranus, I think. Yeah.
Cut out your skin, fabric, body, then you kind of like fragment that's who you are.
Exactly. It's like, I mean, you have skin. I have skin too. It goes off. It's part of us. Sometimes we don't notice, sometimes we do. Sometimes it hurts, sometimes it feels good.
Yeah, they're definitely in some identity crisis.
All right, so that's the talk. So I kind of wanted to sort of see this performance art history in a very different kind of perspective, you know, for my own way. And if you have a WeChat, you can scan this, and there's like an archive of a whole radio program. Also, this essay you can read in a WeChat. So that's all for today, and then we can answer your questions.
Oh, there's already one.
Oh, thank you.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you chose the performances, the performance people for this exhibition, whether it was just influence or if you were trying to kind of get a range of different historical performances.
Right. It has like a narrative for myself. Like I choose some performance that I really like to identify with. Also, I want to show, and then also some music performance, as well as like some installation in a group. But it was interesting because after I researched about astrology, actually a lot of energy of performance people had similar energy with my natal chart. So maybe there's some kind of subjective like relationship with the. But I don't know. This could apply to any kind of artwork. So I'm open to put another one, you know. But I'm always trying to make a group that is like identify itself, but also make some kind of rupture within a collective. So for instance, I choose Angels in America, which is more like a theater piece, you know, it's not like contemporary art. Or I choose, you know, Culturgeschichte, 1983 by Hannah Darboven. This is not performance art. So it's like trying to have a different dynamics. And some performance piece like Ibiza or Gravity, they are like kind of like marginalized performance piece that is not necessarily like become like canonical performance history. So it's like a weird, my own way of involving with like what would be a history for this ephemeral form of art. Okay.
I would like to know how spontaneous your work is, because when you look at it, it looks like being very precise and a very clear like concept and work behind it. But on the other hand, it looks very spontaneous, has many layers, and also I sometimes get the feeling you are doing in these groups things that are fun also. So how is this relationship between fun and construction and research work and so
on? Yes, I think structure, I always like, I guess like make a structure kind of
I have the feeling, yeah, the higher the precision, the more fun it is actually. So it's kind of like more like a preset for the fun is I guess the precision and the structure, and yeah, that's how I experience it working with AI.
I also wanted to like maybe there's some rigidness to have this very specific group, but then like my like artist sort of identity is kind of like make a like influenced by it on sometimes kind of slipping through, and at that moment I'm always kind of maybe looking for, you know, like by inviting different performance people or paintings that I want to kind of work with, and then let kind of group dynamics happen itself, and then like I'm kind of I don't know, enjoying, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you both for a really interesting presentation. So next Wednesday you're doing a performance with the class at the Kunstverein at 8 o'clock, and I'd really like to know how it's going so far. What are some of the ideas that you've been throwing around with the students or with the participants? Do you have a little sort of verbal preview for us, perhaps?
I think we are very prepared. And it will be focused on the music.
Not only, but it will definitely involve lots of music, and it will be, a nice variety of single and collective.
Yes, I'll tell you more.
You remember the paintings by Carl Johan Högberg that we looked at briefly together, like if you print out? Because it's an amazing connection already with the work you've already done, wheeling pictures around. This is purely, I'd love people to say this is all planned, but it's purely coincidental. Is that something that...
Which painting?
So remember we discussed the painter will be showing in the Großes Hall that
printout.
Carl Johan Högberg, and I printed the images for you.
Oh yes.
And they're also on these wheelie platforms that you used in that performance several years ago that you showed to us.
Actually,
is that something you don't have to say yes or no, but is that something that's been sparking interest with you and the group?
No. We'll have another forecast, and then we have several locations in the space. I'm not sure. Yeah, we actually have to ask you some permission for certain things. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I guess it's very consistent also with the Performance People exhibition. It's really about the group dynamics, and we're also kind of on a daily basis practicing this group dynamics, and it's But
I never actually had a teaching experience for performance art, and my School of Visual Arts and Bard College MFA, they're interdisciplinary, but it was very hard to have performance class. It was great that we have performance opportunity, and we can somehow learning by doing actual performance. So it's very nice that we can do this.
Yes.
And then we will be 20 proposition as a performance piece, because we have a lot of different performance kind of happening together. Yes. But any other question?
I was wondering about the selection of the paintings, for the singing paintings. Why did you pick these 5 ones? Are they in a dialogue? 7.
Yes.
Are they in a dialogue with each other, or how does it work?
I believe it has a dialogue. It actually was a little tricky. The song was separated to each songs, but sometimes I think if you go into a detail of each painter's practice, they are already in conversation, which I knew. So I already kind of casted the painting. Casting of painting was already sort of I knew somehow what the people expect. So it is in a conversation, right?
Yes, and I would actually say that most of them are really conversational paintings, more like a painting which is always kind of in a discursive relationship to other paintings, for example, Jutta Kotesch is quoting Balthus, or a Mercedes-Benz advertisement, and Joan Mitchell is actually quoting Van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh, and so on. So it's really very conversational paintings per se.
Yeah, I think the painting itself already have a citational nature. So they are already talking to other painting, other histories, and I was just sort of use that in a part of this theater in outdoor. Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. And another one for 2 weeks, and everybody's invited to your performance on Wednesday in 1 week at the Kunsthaus, right? Seamus?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, and then by the way, quickly, I'm on a quickly like 30 minutes or 40 minutes talk of Japanese performance art history tomorrow in my class around 5:30, I think. Let's say 5:30. It's okay, right?
I think so, yeah.
If you're interested, what kind of post-1945 Japanese performance art are there, I can sort of introduce kind of survey things, plus some like 1920s Japanese performance art. So if you're interested, you're welcome to come to our class. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.